My name is Laura, and at 32 years old, my parents ignored my birthday for 5 straight years, but bought my sister a brand new Audi. I cut them off, and their desperation turned to stalking. If you have ever felt betrayed by the people who should have been your biggest supporters, let me know where you are watching from. My sister Lyra is 29 years old. Our parents, Isaac and Lily Mitchell, are what you might call comfortable. Dad has 3 thriving auto repair shops in our mid-size Ohio town of Westerville, while Mom runs a dentistry practice. They are not millionaires, but money has never been a major issue for them. Lyra was always the most popular kid when she was little. She was prettier, more extroverted, better in athletics, and achieved higher grades without trying. I was the quiet, bookish person who spent more time reading than socializing. Classic middle-class family dynamics, right? I assumed it would change as we grew older. Spoiler alert, it didn't. The birthday celebrations began when I turned 28 on March 18th, 2019. I had been living in Chicago for almost 4 years, working as a software developer for a healthcare organization. I wasn't expecting much, but I expected my folks might call or send a card. My birthday has come and gone. Nothing. Not even a text message. When I contacted them 2 days later, Mom acted as if she had forgotten. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Work has been absolutely crazy, and your father's been dealing with that issue at the Maple Street shop." Typical excuses. She promised to make things up to me. She never did. I persuaded myself it was a fluke. Sometimes people forget. Life gets busier. I was an adult living in a different state. Maybe they decided I didn't need their attention anymore. But it happened again in 2020. March 15th passed without a word. This time, when I contacted Mom 3 days later, she looked shocked that I was upset. "Sweetie, you know we love you. We're just not good with dates anymore. Getting old, I guess." She laughed it off. Dad got on the phone and murmured something about sending me something nice for Christmas to compensate. Christmas 2020 arrived. They sent Lyra a lovely necklace with accompanying earrings. I received a generic gift card at Target. The third missed birthday occurred in 2021. By this point, I was beginning to notice the pattern, but I remained hopeful. Perhaps this will be the year they remember. Perhaps they had learned from prior years. Nope. March 17th, 2021. The radio is silent, but this is where things become interesting. 2 weeks later, I noticed on Lyra's Instagram that our parents had surprised her with a weekend vacation to Nashville for her 26th birthday. They'd been photographed in posh restaurants and Broadway musicals, among other places. Her birthday falls in January, by the way. They recalled hers as well. When I challenged Mom about this, she became defensive. Lyra needed encouragement after her separation with Orion. We believed a trip would make her feel better. "You're doing so well in Chicago. Honey, you don't need us fussing over you all the time." That hurt more than I'd like to admit. 2021 and 2023 were carbon copies, forgotten birthdays, lame excuses, while Lyra had increasingly extravagant celebrations. They threw her a surprise party for her 27th birthday, attended by approximately 52 guests. For her 27th birthday, they reserved a private room at the town's finest restaurant. During this period, I was thriving professionally. I'd had 2 promotions, was making good money, had purchased my own condo, and was content with my life in Chicago. But the birthday issue nagged at me. Every year, I persuaded myself that I didn't care, that I was above requiring my parents' approval. But deep inside, it ached like hell. The worst part was that Lyra never acknowledged or cared about the inequality. She'd call me after her big festivities, gushing about how wonderful Mom and Dad were and how fortunate we were to have such caring parents. I'd listen and make the necessary sounds, but inwardly, I was screaming. Now comes the big one, my 31st birthday, which occurred this past March. By this point, I had given up on expecting anything. I planned a relaxing evening for myself, ordering sushi from my favorite restaurant, opening a bottle of wine, and settling in to watch a movie. I wasn't even disappointed that my phone didn't ring. I was over it. But the next day, my friend Callista, who is connected to Lyra on social media, emailed me a screenshot that made my blood run cold. Lyra's Instagram story featured a shot of her parents handing her the keys to a brand new Audi Q7. The caption stated, "An early birthday gift from the best parents in the world." They said they wanted to make sure I'm safe on the roads. I'm so blessed. # grateful. # best parents. # new car. Lyra's birthday is in January. This was March 16th, the day following my entirely disregarded 31st birthday. I sat in my living room for almost 25 minutes, staring at that snapshot. The Audi Q7 starts at approximately $62,000. These individuals couldn't remember to give me a $6 birthday card, but they could spend $62,000 on a luxury SUV for Lyra because they wanted her to be safe on the road. That night, I took a life-changing decision. I didn't scream. I did not send angry texts. I did not confront Lyra. Instead, I quietly began banning them on all platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, their phone numbers, and emails. I also blocked Lyra. I unfriended mutual family friends who could function as flying monkeys. I even blocked my Aunt Katie, who has always been the family gossip. I didn't say what I was doing. I did not send a grandiose farewell message. I suddenly vanished from their digital life entirely. The first several days were calm. I felt a peculiar sense of relief, as if I had been holding my breath for years and could now release. I poured myself into work, socialized with friends, and began taking pottery classes. Life continued on. About 2 weeks later, my coworker, Eloin, stated that someone had called the workplace looking for me. A woman named Lily Mitchell. She seemed frantic. She said it was a family emergency, but when I volunteered to take a message, she hung up. Mom had somehow obtained my work phone number and was contacting my office. That's when I discovered they knew I'd blocked them. According to Eloin, the calls became more frequent over the next several days. Mom came first, followed by Dad, and finally Lyra. They started phoning several times per day. Eloin stated that the woman claiming to be my sister appeared to be crying during one of the calls. I told Eloin and our receptionist to inform anyone calling for me that I was unavailable and couldn't take personal calls during business hours. We have a tight policy on it, so that was not unusual, but they did not stop there. About a month into my silent treatment, my friend Callista began receiving texts from Lyra. Callista gave me the screenshots, and they were something else. Lyra: Hello, Callista. I understand you're acquainted with my sister Laura. We haven't heard from her in weeks, and we're scared. She's not returning calls or texts. Do you know if she's okay? Callista: I saw her last weekend, and she appeared fine to me. Lyra: That's such a relief. We thought something horrible had happened. Can you get her to call home? Mom is beyond herself with concern. Callista: I can suggest it, but Laura is an adult. If she isn't phoning, there could be a reason. Lyra: I'm not sure what we could have done wrong. We have always been such a tight family. I almost laughed out loud when I read the last message. The communications to Callista persisted for several weeks. Lyra described my parents as devastated, concerned, unwell, and unable to eat or sleep since they had no idea what had happened to their precious daughter. According to her, Dad was thinking about hiring a private detective to make sure I was okay. The modification was so evident that it might nearly be considered creative, but the actual brilliance arrived. 2 months later, Callista emailed me a long, rambling voice message that Lyra had sent to her. I'm paraphrasing here, but it was basically a 20-minute sob story about how the family was breaking apart without me. How Mom sobbed every day. Dad had been drinking more than normal. It was almost probably a falsehood. Dad rarely drinks. They couldn't fathom what they had done to deserve this treatment. The clincher was the finale. We know Laura's birthday is coming up next year, and Mom is already arranging something extra special to compensate. Well, if we've missed it in the past, we just need her to return home so we can be a family again. 5 years, 5 birthdays, entirely forgotten. And suddenly, it seemed as if we had somehow missed it. But wait, things get better. Around the same time, I discovered they had been contacting other acquaintances of mine. Oilia, my college roommate, contacted me, giggling over a Facebook message she received from my mother. According to Oilia, Mom had sent her a lengthy message inquiring if she had heard from me, expressing concern for my mental health and well-being, and wondering if I was experiencing a breakdown. The message appeared to contain a lot of information about Lyra's success and happiness, how proud they were of her new job, how she had begun working at Dad's firm, and how they simply wanted their entire family to participate in the delight. Even in their fear, they couldn't help but focus on Lyra. My coworker Theon received an even stranger approach. Dad saw him on LinkedIn and sent him a professional-sounding message asking whether I was doing well at work and if there were any worries about my mental health that the family should be aware of. Theon was so confused that he took a screenshot and quickly texted it to me. That crossed the line. Attempting to interfere with my professional life was intolerable, but I remained firm. I did not respond to any of it. I just watched from my serene, drama-free cocoon as they descended deeper into terror. I just watched from my serene, drama-free cocoon as they descended deeper into terror. The escalation persisted. They got my landlord's contact information, God knows how, and reportedly called him to express concern about my well-being and ask whether he had seen me recently. My poor landlord, Mr. Navarro, was completely perplexed. He called on my door one evening to see whether everything was fine with my family, as he had received some weird calls. They contacted my gymnasium. They obtained the number from my dentist's office. They were looking everywhere for someone, anybody who could certify my survival and force me to contact them again. The most invasive thing they did was find my building's main phone number through the property management firm. Chicago apartment buildings with doormen are often security-minded. So I was surprised when Cassian, the evening doorman, revealed that a woman claiming to be my mother had contacted the building's main office to inquire about me. She seemed quite concerned. Cassian informed me she hadn't heard from you in months and wondered if you were okay. I told her I couldn't offer her any information about the occupants, but she kept asking if I'd seen you come and depart. She seemed to be crying. Mom had found the main phone number for my building and was calling to interview the staff, which was both remarkable and scary. It demonstrated a degree of determination that bordered on stalking. I also discovered that they had been calling my doctor's office in Chicago. Dad apparently utilized his business ties in the automobile industry to find out which medical organization I used based on my insurance information. My doctor's receptionist mentioned it at my annual physical, wondering whether everything was fine with my family, after receiving some strange calls from people claiming to be my parents and inquiring about my health status. She assured me that we had not given them any information. HIPAA prohibits us from revealing any information. However, the woman was persistent and appeared distressed. The medical privacy regulations rescued me there, but the fact that they were ready to attempt to access my health information without my permission was another red flag. Around the 6th month of my silence, I realized that they had escalated to a level of social media stalking that was quite worrisome. My friend Theon showed me a copy of a Facebook message he received from someone who used a false profile with a stock photo and the name Katie Miller. The message began with the following. Hi, Theron. I'm a family friend of Laura Mitchell. We're very concerned about her well-being and haven't been able to reach her for several months. Could you please ask her to contact her family? We're very worried something might have happened to her. Thank you. Theon checked the profile and discovered it had been created just days before the message was sent. There was no other activity and no mutual friends between either of us. It was plainly a bogus account made deliberately to contact my friends. This is when they weren't simply panicking. They were becoming understood, manipulative, and deceitful in their attempts to contact me. But arguably, the most striking episode occurred 7 months into my silence. My friend Callista, who had been my primary source of information on their ongoing crisis, informed me about a chat she had with Lyra in a coffee shop. Callista had run into Lyra by happenstance, and Lyra immediately began recounting the events surrounding my absence. But this time, her story had changed dramatically from previous iterations. According to Callista, Lyra was now stating that I had always been envious of her and resentful of our family's prosperity. She claimed I had gotten increasingly unstable over the last couple years and had made several worrying statements about feeling unappreciated. This was entirely fabrication. I had never exhibited jealousy to Lyra or made any disturbing remarks. If anything, I'd been too successful at concealing my angry feelings and maintaining a cheerful demeanor during family gatherings. However, Lyra seemed to have convinced herself that my disappearance was the product of long, simmering mental health concerns rather than valid objections about how I was handled. She told me you'd be an acting paranoid, Callista claimed, claiming that they love me more than you, which she said was obviously not true, because your parents love you both equally. She said they were concerned you'd have a breakdown. The gas illumination was amazing. They had reframed my valid concerns about differential care as signs of mental illness and paranoid delusions. She also said, Callista added that they'd offered to pay for therapy for you several times, but you'd refused because you didn't believe anything was wrong with you. This was a complete falsehood. They had never offered to pay for therapy for me. They had never indicated that I would benefit from therapy. In fact, when I mentioned seeing a therapist in Chicago during one of our phone calls a few years ago, Mom's response was, "What for? You seemed fine to me." But now, in the revised narrative, I was the unstable daughter who refused help, and they were the loving parents desperately trying to get me the help I needed. Callista, to her credit, did not purchase any of it. I told her that you seemed perfectly fine to me, and that maybe if you weren't talking to them, there was a good reason for it. That wasn't something she liked. Lyra had grown clearly irritated when Callista suggested that there might be a reasonable cause for my silence. She continued adding, "But we're such a tight family. We've always been this way. Laura understands how much we adore her. The deception was so strong that I almost felt sad for her almost. But what struck me most about Callista's testimony was how Lyra portrayed herself as the primary victim in all of this, rather than our parents who were apparently concerned about me. LRA was the one who suffered the most because of my absence. She claimed she felt as if she had lost her dearest friend. Callista told me she talked about how you two used to tell each other everything, and how she didn't understand what she had done wrong to make you dislike her. Again, this was revisionist history. Lyra and I were never best friends. We had never told each other everything. We had been polite siblings who got along well, but were not particularly close. But in her eyes, we'd had this deep, important relationship that I'd cruelly ended by vanishing. The most disturbing part was when Callista indicated that Lyra had requested her to keep an eye on me and report back if I appeared to be in difficulty or required assistance. She gave me her phone number and asked me to call her immediately if you seemed depressed or said anything worrying. She said the family was prepared to stage an intervention if necessary. What kind of intervention was this? For establishing boundaries and removing poisonous individuals from my life. The thought that they could try to force their way back into my life under the guise of assisting me was horrifying. It demonstrated how far they were ready to go to avoid admitting their own involvement in this issue. This talk with Callista was what drove me to be more concerned about my privacy and security. I altered my work schedule slightly to avoid being predictable. I changed my routes home. I became more cautious about what I communicated on social media, even with privacy settings. It sounds crazy, but with their rising conduct, I wasn't taking any chances. The most strange aspect was witnessing how this affected Lyra through social media posts that friends would periodically send me. Her Instagram feed shifted from frequent updates about her perfect life to increasingly distraught messages about family, unconditional love, and missing significant people. She shared a flashback photo of the two of us from Christmas 2018 with the message, "Family is everything," and said she was sending love to everyone who needed it right now. People asked whether everything was okay in the comments, to which she responded with vague sentiments about being in a difficult situation and hoping for a quick resolution. The most manipulative post had a photo of her with our parents at a restaurant. All of them appeared melancholy with the message, "Dinner with Mom and Dad. Some chairs feel empty tonight. Love you guys. Family isn't the same when someone is missing. Number sign. Family number sign. Love number sign. Missing you." She obviously tagged me in it, but because I blocked her, I only saw it when Callista texted me a screenshot. Around this time, I began to see additional patterns that revealed how deeply this preference ran. While archiving old images on my laptop, I stumbled across photos from family events over the years. Looking at them with new eyes was like witnessing our family dynamics in high definition for the first time. Lyra was the focal point of each photo. Birthday celebrations where she was surrounded by relatives, and I stood awkwardly to the side. On Christmas mornings, the amount of presents in front of her was literally twice the size of mine. Graduation photos showed Mom and Dad flanking Lyra with great smiles, while I took a hurried snapshot that appeared to be an afterthought. There was one shot at Lyra's high school graduation that really touched me. Our parents had booked a private room at a country club for her party. There were approximately 40 people there, including a professional photographer, a special cake, and the works. When I graduated from high school 3 years ago, we went to Olive Garden with only my immediate family. I persuaded myself at the time that it was because Lyra was more social and had more friends who wanted to celebrate. But looking at that shot now, I see my 17-year-old self in the background attempting to grin while feeling absolutely insignificant. The more I thought about it, the more cases I recalled. Lyra acquired her first automobile at 16, a practically new Honda Civic that her father had spent weeks researching and test driving with her. When I reached 16, I received Dad's old pickup truck, which barely worked and smelled like motor oil. "It'll teach you responsibility," he had stated. Lyra's car is more reliable for her after-school activities. Lyra participated in drama club and student government. My after-school activities included working part-time at a local bookshop to save for college, but somehow she was the one who required reliable transportation. College was another sharp contrast. Lyra attended Ohio State University and earned a degree in communications, and our parents helped her with tuition, lodging, board, and other expenses. They paid her regular visits, took her and her friends out to dinner, and ensured that she had all she needed. I attended a lesser state school on a partial academic scholarship and worked 20 hours per week in the campus library to cover my expenditures. When I called home anxious about money or dealing with challenging coursework, Mom's response was invariably something along the lines of, "You're so independent, honey. We know you can handle anything." I concluded independence was their code term for neglect. The career information was equally informative. When Lyra graduated and couldn't decide what to do with her communications degree, our parents supported her for a year of self-discovery, which included largely traveling and working part-time at a cafe. When she ultimately decided she wanted to work in business, Dad quickly gave her a position in one of his shops to acquire experience, despite the fact that her degree was in communications rather than business or automotive. When I finished with a computer science degree and relocated to Chicago for my first job, the answer was essentially, "That's nice, dear." There was no offer to assist with moving fees, no excitement about my career prospects, no interest in visiting my new city, just a bland, "We're proud of you," that read like it came from a Hallmark card. Even the way they described us to others was different. I discovered this during one of my rare visits home approximately 2 years ago, before the birthday issue reached a breaking point. I was at the grocery store with Mom when we ran across Mrs. Marigold, our former next-door neighbor. Mrs. Marigold inquired about both of us, and I got to hear Mom's comments back to back. About Lyra. "Oh, she's doing wonderfully. She's really found her niche at Isaac's business. She has such a head for customer service, and she's been implementing all these new systems that have really improved efficiency. We're so proud of how she's grown into the role, and she just moved into this beautiful apartment downtown. You should see the kitchen." About me. "Laura's doing well too. Still in Chicago, still working with computers. She seems to like it there." That was it. No specifics regarding my advancements, employment honors, or the fact that I got my own place. Just still working with computers, as if I were performing data entry rather than creating software for healthcare systems that save lives. The chat lasted about 5 minutes, but it clarified something for me. Mom thought Lyra's life was intriguing and deserved honoring. My life was perfectly fine, nothing to be enthusiastic about. I began paying closer attention to these encounters during family visits, and the pattern was consistent. Lyra's accomplishments were proclaimed with pomp and thorough explanations. Mine were mentioned briefly, if at all. When Lyra was promoted to assistant manager at Dad's shop, they hosted a family meal to celebrate, including our aunts and uncles. When I was promoted to senior developer, which came with a big salary raise and increased duties, Mom texted me, "Congratulations, honey. Dad says to tell you he's proud." The texting became another cause of frustration. Lyra received long conversational phone calls from Mom several times per week. When I tried to start a discussion, I received quick texts with few replies. "You are correct. Just finished a big project at work. The client was really happy with our solution." Mom: "That's great, honey. Glad work is going well." Lyra's equivalent conversation would have been a 30-minute phone call with detailed questions about the client, the project, her feelings about the work, what her coworkers thought, what she planned to do to celebrate, and most likely what she ate for lunch that day. I tried to bring it up with Lyra once during one of our infrequent phone calls. This was about 6 months before my 31st birthday, and the resentment was really starting to brew. "Do you ever notice how differently Mom and Dad treat us?" I inquired, attempting to maintain a pleasant and non-accusatory tone. Lyra was truly perplexed. "What do you mean?" "I don't know, just they seem more interested in your life than mine, more involved." Laura, that's not true. They love us both equally. If anything, I think they worry about me more because I'm less independent than you are. You've always been the strong one, the one who doesn't need as much support. There it was again. Independence serves as an excuse for neglect. But don't you think they could show interest without me needing support? Like, they could ask about my work or my life in Chicago just because they care, not because I need help. Lyra remained quiet for a moment, then continued. I think you might be overthinking this. Mom and Dad aren't perfect, but they're good parents. Maybe they express love differently with each of us. That chat made me realize Lyra actually didn't notice the disparity. To her, the way our parents treated her was simply typical family devotion. They also treated me normally, albeit in a different way, for a different daughter. Around this time, I began chronicling things. At first, I was only taking mental notes, but I eventually started writing them down. Partly for my own sanity, and partly because the patterns were so obvious that I suspected I was hallucinating them. Christmas 2021 was the perfect illustration. Lyra received a professional massage package, a stunning jewelry box, 3 new outfits, and a weekend spa getaway. The entire worth had to be far more than $1,000. I received a generic gift basket containing chocolates and bath goods that appeared to have come from a corporate holiday brochure. When I opened the gift basket, Mom said, "We thought you could use some relaxation after working so hard." It sounded sweet until I realized it was the identical gift basket she had given to the receptionist at her dentist practice. Lyra, on the other hand, shouted with glee at each gift, embraced our parents several times, and shared numerous Instagram stories about how privileged she felt and how wonderful our parents were. I smiled and responded, "Thank you for the gift basket." What else could I do? The documentation was useful later because it let me recognize that I wasn't insane or unduly sensitive. The differential treatment was genuine and quantifiable. Over the course of a year, I noted 11 occasions when Lyra received substantial presents or festivities for various events: birthday, promotion, new apartment, breakup, consolation, unexpected thinking of you, surprises, etc. In the same year, I received 2 generic gift cards. However, the most telling occurrence happened approximately 8 months before the Audi scenario. Lyra contacted me, crying after getting into a fender bender in a parking lot. Nothing terrible, just a minor damage to her bumper and a scraped headlight. Nobody was wounded, and insurance would cover the repairs. Our parents arrived at the scene within an hour of Lyra's call. Dad dealt with both the insurance adjuster and the other motorist. Mom took Lyra to lunch to settle her anxiety. They arranged for her car to be towed to Dad's shop for repairs, gave her one of Dad's spare vehicles to drive, and generally handled the situation as a serious crisis requiring rapid family mobilization. 2 months later, I was involved in a more catastrophic collision on a highway near Chicago. A truck ran a red light and struck my car hard enough to activate the airbags. I was scared and bruised, but fortunately not terribly hurt. My vehicle, however, was totaled. I contacted Mom from the emergency department while I was being checked out, partly because I was terrified and needed to talk to someone, and partly because I believed they should know if something was wrong with me. Mom replied, "Oh no, are you hurt? Do you need us to do anything?" I told her I was fine, but quite rattled up, and that I'd have to deal with insurance and obtaining a new automobile. "Well, that's a hassle, but it sounds like you have everything under control. You're so good at handling these things, Laura. Let us know if you need anything." That was all it took. There was no offer to drive up and aid. There was no hint that Dad could utilize his connections in the auto sector to assist me find a replacement vehicle. There were no follow-up calls to see how I was feeling emotionally. Nothing. Lyra summoned a family crisis response team for a parking lot scrape. I received a 5-minute phone call and a "let us know if you need anything" regarding a highway collision that could have killed me. The difference was so strong that it was almost humorous. That episode was definitely the start of the end for me, emotionally speaking. I began withdrawing from family communications, not returning calls as quickly, and keeping discussions brief when I did speak with them. I was defending myself, although I didn't understand it at the time. Which takes me to another pattern I've noticed. They never questioned why I was becoming less talkative. Whether Lyra had started acting distant and short with them, they would have quickly wanted to know what was wrong, what they could do to cure it, and whether she needed help. When I started performing it, they appeared relieved. One less thing to worry about, I suppose. But here's what really strengthened my commitment. Nowhere in these posts, conversations, or urgent attempts to contact me did anyone admit what they had done wrong. They never said, "We're sorry we forgot your birthday 5 years in a row." They never acknowledged the huge inequity in how they treated Lyra versus me. It was all about how much they missed me, how scared they were, and how the family was incomplete without me, but there was never an explanation for why I went missing in the first place. After nearly 4 months, the techniques altered. Instead of contacting my pals, they began attempting to contact me directly using techniques they assumed I couldn't block. First, it was letters to my apartment, long handwritten notes from Mom, telling me how much they loved me, how sorry they were for whatever sorrow they had caused me, and imploring me to come home for Sunday dinner so they could sort things out. The letters were masterful examples of non-apology apologies. "I'm sorry if you felt neglected. We never meant for you to feel less important than Lyra. If we made mistakes, we want to make them right." Whatever. Then the packages arrived. Care packages included my favorite childhood snacks, books they thought I'd enjoy, small trinkets, and gifts. Each delivery included a note imploring me to call them. The gifts were sarcastic. After 5 years of not remembering my birthday, they suddenly knew what I loved and when to send it. Dad took a different approach. He sent me a formal letter that was typed rather than handwritten like Mom's, and it was extremely businesslike and matter-of-fact. He accepted that there had been communication challenges in our family, admitted that they may have unwittingly favored Lyra, and suggested that we meet with a family counselor to work through these issues as adults. It was arguably the most mature thing any of them had done, but it was too little, too late, and he still couldn't really accept what they had done. Lyra may have been favored unintentionally. There was nothing inadvertent about spending $60,000 on a car for her while completely ignoring my existence. The true turning point occurred 6 months into my quiet treatment. Callista informed me that Lyra had been visiting a therapist, allegedly because she was upset by my disappearance and couldn't figure out what she had done wrong. According to Callista, Lyra was telling people that she had always looked up to me, that I was her role model and best friend, and that losing me was like losing a piece of herself. This was revisionist history at its best. Lyra and I had never been very close. We got along well, but we were quite different people, living very different lives. She had never treated me as a role model or best friend. I was her dull, older sister who lived far away and worked in technology. But now, in the story she was spinning for her therapist and anyone who would listen, I was the most significant figure in her life, and my absence was causing her significant psychological suffering. The manipulation was astounding. Around this time, I learned through common connections that my parents were telling people I was having a mental health crisis, which was why I disappeared. They were presenting themselves as the concerned, caring parents of a girl who had gone over the deep end for no reason. This narrative fulfilled two aims. It made them appear compassionate, and it implied that my behavior was irrational and unrelated to anything they had actually done. I was beginning to grasp how far their self-deception went. They considered themselves good parents who had always treated their girls equally. My disappearance was not the result of their activities. It was a random catastrophe that had struck their lovely family. But the best, or worst, depending on your perspective, was yet to come. 8 months after I blocked them, Callista forwarded me something that made me laugh aloud. Lyra had made a Facebook event invitation that read, "Laura's 32nd birthday celebration. Wherever you are, we love you." The event was scheduled for March 15th, my forthcoming birthday. The description continued, "Even though our beloved Laura can't be with us this year, we're going to celebrate her anyway. We'll be gathering at Mom and Dad's house to share memories, look at photos, and send love to someone very special who we miss every day. Laura, if you see this somehow, please know that you are loved, missed, and always welcome home." She'd invited about 60 people, including extended relatives, family friends, and even some of my former high school classmates whom I barely recognized. People left dozens of comments at the event, expressing compassion for the family and hoping that I would come to my senses and stop hurting my lovely family. It was great. Truly, they were having a birthday party for me without me. The same me whose birthdays they had neglected for 5 years in a row, and they were using it as a public relations campaign to portray themselves as the victims of my callous desertion. But here's what made it so wonderful. The event page indicated that some of my current acquaintances in Chicago had been invited: Callista, Oilia, Theon, and even Eloan from work. Lyra had evidently conducted extensive social media monitoring to locate persons in my current life. That was when I understood they weren't simply panicking, they were going nuclear. By the way, the event did not truly take place. I believe someone, maybe Aunt Katie, pointed out how psychotic it appeared, and Lyra secretly deleted it about a week before my birthday, but not before I screenshotted the entire thing for posterity. My actual 32nd birthday passed pleasantly. I celebrated with friends in Chicago, went out for a beautiful dinner, and had a wonderful time with no drama, missed phone calls, or disappointment. It was the finest birthday I had in years. But allegedly, my parents spent the day calling every hospital in Chicago to see if I had been in an accident. Callista, who learned this from Lyra, was persuaded that the only reason I wouldn't come home for the birthday party was if I was physically unable to do so. The delusion was complete. We've already reached the 1-year mark, 12 months since I blocked them all and disappeared from their life. And honestly, this has been the most tranquil year I've had since leaving home. My mental health has improved significantly. I'd had no idea how much emotional energy I was devoting to resentment and hurt sentiments until I stopped having to deal with the source of those feelings. My relationships with pals have grown stronger. My job performance has been fantastic. I've begun dating someone wonderful. Life is good. However, the family drama continues to unravel, and I learn about it through numerous routes. Lyra appears to have become more unstable during the past few months. She has either quit or been fired from her work at Dad's business. The stories vary. She moved back in with our folks. Callista claims she's gained weight and stopped caring. Instagram posts have become sporadic and sometimes incomprehensible. She had also begun reaching out to my pals in increasingly desperate ways. About 3 months into my silence, she sent Oilia a 5-page handwritten letter about our childhood, begging her to tell her what she did wrong and provide any information about how to contact me. The letter was unnerving. It rambled over moments that I didn't even remember the same way, portrayed our relationship as much tighter and more profound than it had ever been, and included some very strange assertions about how she couldn't live without her big sister and felt like half of herself without me. Oilia was so anxious that she inquired if she should contact someone to conduct a wellness check on Lyra. My parents, this year, appear to have marked a significant age shift. Dad's business has deteriorated as a result of his distraction and bad decision-making. Mom has taken time off from her job at the dental office. They've both gained weight and, according to family friends, don't mingle as much. They also apparently spent thousands of dollars on a private investigator who established that I am still alive and well in Chicago, but was unable to determine the exact cause of my estrangement. The birthday circumstance and familial favoritism were not something that would appear in public records or casual inquiry. Thus, the investigator was unable to determine why. The private investigator supposedly told them that based on his research, I appeared to be thriving, doing well at work, maintaining friendships, and living a regular life, which only added to their confusion. If everything was going great, why wouldn't she want her wonderful family in her life? Aunt Katie, the family gossip, appears to have become the situation's unofficial spokesperson. She's been telling everyone who will listen that I got involved with a horrible crowd in Chicago and was indoctrinated against my family. She has also claimed that I'm in an abusive relationship with someone who is separating me from my support network. The story evolves, but they are always absolved of any involvement. Here's what I've learned in the last year. My family is not capable of serious self-reflection. They can't admit that they mistreated me, because it would mean admitting that they aren't the wonderful, perfect parents they imagine themselves to be. Instead, they've developed a complex scenario in which I'm either mentally ill, being misled by others, or experiencing an incomprehensible crisis unrelated to their conduct. And honestly, I'm fine with that. Their delusion is not my responsibility to correct. I've been seeing a therapist during this process, and she's helped me see that what I did, removing myself from a poisonous setting without drama or conflict, was the healthiest possible response. She refers to it as the gray rock method, brought to its logical conclusion. Instead of attempting to become uninteresting to toxic people, I simply removed myself from their life completely. The birthday was only a spark. The fundamental issue was that I had never felt properly respected or prioritized by these folks. I was the backup child, an afterthought, someone they could neglect because I was doing okay on my own. And you know what? They were correct. I'm doing well on my own. Better than fine, actually. I do not miss them. I assumed I would, but I don't. I don't miss the anxiety of wondering if they'll remember crucial events. I don't miss having to compete with Lyra for morsels of attention. I don't miss the daily low-level pain of being viewed as unimportant. What I gained from cutting them off was far more precious than what I lost. I attained peace. I developed self-respect. I regained the energy I had been wasting on hatred and broken sentiments. I acquired clarity about what I truly desire from relationships. And I got something else. The realization that I can live without them, that I do not require their approval, attention, or love to be happy and successful. That is a powerful discovery. People ask me if I ever intend to reconcile with them. I honestly don't know. Maybe eventually, if they can sincerely admit what they did and why it was upsetting, we can have a dialogue. However, doing so would necessitate admitting their error, and I am not holding my breath. For the time being, I'm content to let them wonder, fret, and spiral into panic and uncertainty as they make desperate attempts to contact me. They forgot I existed for 5 years. They can now spend as much time as necessary remembering exactly what they lost. And in a lovely irony, the silent treatment I am giving them is having a far greater influence on their lives than those 5 ignored birthdays did on mine. I'm not looking for retribution. I'm not trying to injure them. I am just living my life without them. And obviously, that was the most damaging thing I could have done. Sometimes the best retaliation is simply refusing to participate in someone else's dysfunction. They forgot about me for 5 consecutive birthdays. Now they'll spend every day wondering where I am, what I'm doing, and whether I'll ever return. I call that poetic justice. The difference is that I am not losing sleep about it. Update. I know some people may inquire about holidays and what I plan to do in the event of a family emergency. For the holidays, I have fantastic friends in Chicago who have basically adopted me into their families. Last Christmas was the finest I'd had in years. I've given a lot of thought to emergency situations. If something genuinely severe happened to one of them, like a life-threatening sickness or accident, I would most likely learn about it through mutual connections and would have to determine how to handle it at the time. But I'm not going to break my silence simply because they create drama or declare an emergency when there isn't one. And yes, I understand that some people believe what I'm doing is harsh or cruel, but I was hurt for 5 years by their thoughtlessness and coldness. I don't have to put up with more of the same, simply because they've decided they miss me now that I'm gone. For those inquiring about my building security, yes, they have stringent restrictions against disclosing resident information. My parents discovered the main property management phone number online and contacted pretending to be concerned family members. The staff did not provide any personal information, but when pressed, they did confirm that I live there, which was already too much information in my perspective. Thank you for reading, Reddit. Sometimes telling your tale to strangers on the internet helps you understand you're not insane. TLDR. My parents neglected my birthday for 5 years in a row while lavishing attention and expensive gifts on my sister. When they gave her a $60,000 Audi the day after forgetting my 31st birthday, I simply banned everyone and vanished from their lives. They've spent the last year panicking, employing private investigators, and fabricating intricate explanations for my disappearance while never admitting their mistakes.